Something shifted today, and you may not have noticed it yet. Heaven turned its attention toward you. Not the way it does every day in passing. This was different. This was the kind of attention that comes when something rare has been found. I want you to receive what I am about to say, not as a nice thought to make you feel better for a moment, but as truth. You have walked through things that were designed to break you completely, not slow you down, not test your patience, end you. There were seasons when relief never came, when one hard thing hadn't even finished before the next one showed up at your door. And still you did not fully quit. That is what stopped heaven in its tracks. Not your highlight reel. Not the days you had it together and posted the good version of your life. What moved me were the days you had nothing left, and somewhere underneath the exhaustion, you still reached for me. A whisper when you had no strength to pray out loud. A reluctant step back toward me, even when you weren't sure I'd answer. You thought those were your weakest moments. I read them differently. My child, you left me without words. Sit with that for a second. Not because you performed well. Not because your record is spotless. But because in the place no one else could see, the place where pressure breaks most people, you held something that should have given out. You bent. I watched you bend. But you didn't break. There was a thread you kept holding on to. Sometimes you held it tight. Sometimes it was barely a grip at all. But you held it. That thread wasn't grit. It wasn't willpower you manufactured on your own. I placed it there. What I plant in someone doesn't get ripped out easily. The ground shook. The root held anyway. Let me be clear about something. I am not saying what you went through was good. Pain is not a gift. Loss is not a blessing in disguise. What came against you was real, and it was heavy. I know exactly how heavy, because I was there for all of it. Not watching from far off. I was in the room with you, every night that stretched longer than it should have, every morning that came without any relief, every silence that felt like an answer you weren't ready to hear. I never left. What I placed inside you was there long before this season started. The pressure didn't create it. The pressure revealed it. And what it revealed was rare enough to stop heaven and make it pay attention. You kept your integrity when letting it slide would have been easier. You stayed honest when a lie would have made your life simpler. When people you trusted let you down, you didn't let it turn you hard. You stayed open. That's not nothing. To the world, it might look like nothing. To me, it's everything. Some people look strong on the outside and are hollow underneath. With you, it was the opposite. On the outside, you doubted plenty. You worried. There were stretches where hope felt like something you couldn't get your hands around anymore. But in that quiet, private place, the place where a person's real character actually lives, there was something steady. Something that refused to fully agree with what your circumstances were saying about you. I built that place, and what I found inside it moved me. When betrayal came, and it did come, I watched for bitterness because that's usually what shows up first. With you, the hurt was real, but bitterness never found anything to grab onto. Something in you kept letting it go, even when holding onto it would have felt justified. When the silence stretched on longer than you expected, and no answers came, you kept something alive that most people give up in seasons like that. You kept reaching, quietly, sometimes barely, but you didn't go fully silent on me. That's the kind of faith that counts. Not the loud kind that shows up when life is good. The kind that sits in a dark room and says my name anyway, even when it doesn't feel like anything is listening back. I found loyalty in you where other people walked away. I found patience where frustration would have made complete sense. I found kindness still operating in you after you'd been treated without any. You didn't perform that for an audience. I saw it in your private choices when no one was watching, when no one was grading you, when the only witness was you and me. That's the real measure of a person. Not what they do on a stage. What they choose when they're tired and alone and the easier wrong thing is sitting right in front of them. There's something else I found, and it's the hardest thing to hold on to after pain like yours. Your ability to feel for other people never shut down. After getting hurt, no one would have blamed you for pulling back, for deciding you had enough on your plate without carrying someone else's weight too. But that's not what happened. You stayed open. You still felt what other people were carrying, even while you were buried under your own. You still showed up for them. That doesn't happen automatically in someone who's been through what you've been through. Loyalty under pressure. Faith that holds through long silence. Compassion that survives personal pain. I've watched people carry heavy things and come out the other side closed off, hardened, unreachable. That's not what happened to you. What you came out with I can only call depth. Depth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask to be noticed. It just shows up when something too heavy for a shallow person comes your way. It shows up in what you choose when nobody's watching and the easy way out is right there. You have depth, my child. It was built through things that cost you something. Through seasons that asked more of you than you thought you had. You thought those seasons meant something was wrong with you. You compared yourself to people who looked further along, more put together, more successful. But that comparison was never fair to begin with. Their timeline was never your timeline. What was being built in you doesn't get built while you're moving fast. It gets built in the slow, still places, where there's nothing left to do but hold on. You held on. And what was found in you because of it is something heaven hasn't been quiet about. Now I need you to understand something clearly. The attacks that came against you were not random. A lot of people assume one of two things about their hardest seasons: either they're just unlucky, or they somehow deserved it. Neither is true for you. What came against you was targeted. And no one spends focused energy trying to take down something that doesn't matter. The enemy studied you before he ever moved. And what he found alarmed him. He couldn't take what I placed in you. He couldn't erase your calling. But if he could get you to doubt it, if he could convince you that you were ordinary, behind, too broken to matter, then what I put in you would just sit there. And used. Not destroyed, dormant. That was the plan. So it didn't come loud. Came as a quiet, steady suggestion. You're behind. You're not like the others. What happened to you marked you permanently. No one who really sees you stays. Those weren't random thoughts. They were placed on purpose. There were times you believed it. I won't pretend otherwise. Times you looked at yourself and saw mostly the damage. Times the whisper telling you that you'd been passed over felt more real than anything I had ever told you. You almost signed your name to that verdict. But you couldn't fully commit to it. Every time you got close to accepting it as permanent, something pushed back. Not loud. Just a flicker. A refusal to fully let go. That resistance wasn't only yours. It was mine too. I kept a thread of truth alive in you, even when the lies were louder than anything else. He tried every door. He used your self-doubt. He used your need for approval. He pressed on the places where you were most sensitive. But what I wrote into you isn't written somewhere pressure can reach. He could lean you toward the lie. He could never get you to swear allegiance to it. And that made all the difference. You're still here. That's not a small thing. Every time the attack came and you didn't fully disappear, every time you came back tired, unsure, reluctant, the enemy's plan failed. Not with a bang. Quietly. But it failed. I want to explain the silence you experienced, because you deserve that explanation. There were seasons when you cried out and asked me to show you who you were, to tell you plainly what was happening and why. And I stayed quiet. Truth doesn't travel well to a heart that isn't ready to carry it yet. That's not a knock on you. It's just how it works. If I had told you this too soon, before the shaping, before the stretching, before you'd learned the difference between people's approval and my direction, it would not have helped you. It would have worked against you. There are two ways that kind of early truth can damage a person. The first is pride. When someone learns something significant about themselves before their character is ready to hold it, that truth curls into arrogance. They start performing an identity instead of carrying one. The second is fear. For some people, hearing the size of what they carry before they're grounded enough to handle it is just too much, and they run from it. I watched you closely through this. I watched whether hardship was making you humble or making you brittle. I watched whether the silence was deepening your trust or feeding resentment. What I saw told me your character was finally ready to hold this truth. My child, the season is shifting now. What was built slowly is about to rise. What's been held down is about to move. What you held onto in silence is about to bear fruit. I'm asking you for something. Bring